Good afternoon. My name is Scott Redler, Chief Strategic Officer at T3Live.com. Welcome to today's recap and look ahead. So first trading day of a new month and what typically happens. Oh, you get some new monthly flows come in. Also, what typically happens after Warren Buffett comes on TV and talks about the long-term plan on investing that typically makes people money. Usually, you get a little upside action. So with markets a little bit oversold and coming almost 60 handles or so off the highs, today, there was a decent bounce orchestrated. So now the question is, was it a bounce to be sold, or will it hold in and then eventually, make higher prices? So at this point, we had a few different plans from the morning call, and let's just get right into the charts. Okay, first things first, everyone knows we failed up at resistance because lots of tech names and lots of key names all basically missed on earnings and put the market a little bit in the penalty box. What else do we know? You have this double bottom right here. That was the low from earlier this year. This is when the market basically said, okay, we have commitment to this double bottom. And then here's when we took out resistance and then wound up forming a nice little accelerated or ascending channel here above the 8 and 21 day until last week. Last week we broke it on Thursday. Broke it on Thursday, had a little downside follow through on Friday, and then came off low. So what did we know coming into today? We knew what Friday's high was. Let's take a close look here. What's Friday's high? Right here, which was, what is that, 20, hold on, let me get rid of this pen here, which was right here. We knew that if we get above this, okay, basically, I didn't write my little, boom. If we get above that, all of a sudden, anyone who's still short probably, gets a little worried and could cover a little bit. Anyone who's flat might trade it for a quick little push. So this high here was a 2073. Got above it, pushed, and closed somewhat near the highs of the day. So now the question is, this ascending channel that we've been in, now it gets interesting. What happens here? Does it push up and just say this is a little bit closer to 2085, and does it get rejected here, or does it power through? And because I know a lot of people started to, reallocate short, short trades into this, and some are taking it overnight and saying I'm going to give it all the way up to, higher prices or not. But at this point, if you remember when we came into here and we held the 2041 area, you had a bit of an engulfing day, and then you had a quick little, I guess a window to cover before going back to highs and then going sideways and making another new high. So here we're still on the right side of this ascending channel. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. Do we gap down? Was today a bull trap? Some people are saying that. Do we, push up a little bit, get above today's high of 2081, push towards 285, reverse and put another little, topping tail in here, and then, come in again? At this point, the market doesn't really know. All I know is there are a few things that you could have done today. The Qs, we talked about an oversold bounce. Basically, we got above Friday's high, and there's room to these moving averages. So we talk about an easy trade or an easy little oversold bounce. Well, we held above Friday's low. Now the question is, first of all, it's never easy. I'm just saying an easy part of the range. Okay, here's your next spot, 107.63. So you have a whole another 80 cents before all these, all this resistance and moving averages converge. So here is your retest, and we'll see what happens if it fails there. Obviously, the ascending channel is broken. We're not even near testing that. Just the question is, can we get up to this spot? And if you were trading, you'd rather be long that little area versus short it, or at least wait for more compelling prices before just shorting the brain early, because if it does push a little bit higher, chances are you might not be able to hold in there. The banks are real strong today. You look at stock like Goldman Sachs, still looks pretty good. I'm not in Goldman Sachs, but all day long, people are asking me if I was going to get in it because it's still flagging, it still looks good, and I just didn't do it. I went from neutral to negative, which I was at the end of last week, to like neutral, and I'm looking for some opportunities. We'll see if this takes out this flag to hit the 200-day. JP Morgan was also strong earlier. Not a blockbuster type pattern here, but the market wasn't going to be able to fall apart today or fade too much with the banks holding in there. So JP Morgan, Goldman still hanging in there. As far as leadership stocks, Amazon took off real fast. Look at that. We had all those setups for post-earnings shorts below post-earnings lows. Well, this was your opposite. Here is your big gap up after earnings, huge. did not get filled, and then it took out the pivot of 669 and then went up another 14 points. So hopefully you caught that trade. If you can handle trading Amazon, your next pivot is the all-time high. And this big gap, a pro gap, usually leads into a directional move. And basically it didn't really happen in Facebook, but maybe because it's thicker and there's not as many shorts, it could happen with some time. You had a red dog reversal on Friday when it went below 16.23, came above it. Was a little wishy-washy today, but closed okay. And I know that momentum guys will be, trading it if it gets above and closes above 120.79. So if that kind of trade really interests you, you might as well be long a little bit versus the low and then see how it works itself out. Another gap up, holding it to continue higher, which is pretty much the opposite of what took place earlier, last week when you had your NFLX gap down and continued to the downside, which happened here. Remember the gap down, then continued below the post-earnings low right there, and now it's bouncing back. And in the morning call today, I drew this little descending channel and I said the same thing. I go, at this point, to be careful pressing. From 112 down to here, little bottom tail. If it gets above 90.56, you can get a push to about 93, and did it in one day. And now this is almost like a day one, so hard to short a day one. You might as well wait to see, how it responds tomorrow if it opens up, to see if it holds in there or not. Google, I think, had a small bounce also, where you had the earnings hole all the way up here, your downside follow-through trade below this, and now it's trying to bounce back up, and it does have some room to this 720 to 727. That's why sometimes you just, you don't want to stay around for the juice of a trade. You look for the meat and potatoes, and then you get away from it and let it figure itself out. And you don't have to be, so enamored to do it so quickly. Like today, everyone around me to say, is like, oh, I want to, short the market because of yesterday's engulfing week. I'm like, well, you might as well wait till it's more compelling so you could trade out of it. Not 207.30, more like, 208, so you have some room to 208.50 or 60 just in case, and then you could figure it out. But anyway, that was that, and today's done. Gold, I came in, I sold my GLD, and I created a call spread. For those of you on the VTF, you followed that last Thursday. I went long the GLD because, the chart looked awesome, right? Finally looked like it was breaking above this upper channel that it's been in for 3 months. So this was your wake up on Fed day. It didn't go down. Bought it on this day, sold a little bit, and then I sold the rest of it today. But I'm still in. We talked about, I think I bought the GLD calls, the 120 calls here for the third week of May for about $1.80. So today we were talking about how to manage it on the VTF, and they were about $4.50, so I sold the 124s with the same expiration for $2. So basically I'm now capped at 126, but now I'll sit in it. I'm also, if we happen to go sideways and come down over the next 2 weeks and they take away the premium, then I'll be able to keep all the $2 premium and then have the amount that the 120s are up, and then maybe do it again. But it was a good way to be in a straight calls, and then as it's extended, turn it into a spread, so this way if it goes sideways, you can get paid on the amount of decay or theta or whatever the big option gurus call it. So anyway, decent trade. A lot of guys actually made some good money shorting the miners. In my note, in the bottom portion, we talked about what would I do for cash flow today, and I said we could look for a cute short in the miners, and the GLD, the GDX within, within a few minutes went negative, and then gave you a few opportunities to short it. This high here, once it 25.83 went below it, that was your spot, and still extended from the 8-day, still extended from the 21-day. I actually traded the Nugget, which wasn't working out real well. It was up like $2 when I shorted it, and then down $3 when I covered it. Nice little $5 trade, something I don't really touch. And now we'll see what it does here. If it goes sideways a little bit, let's the 8 and 21-day catch up. So, you want to be long stocks that are above the 8 and 21-day, but whenever they get way too extended from it, you got to be a little careful. And you can't just short it because it's extended from it, because you can get taken out to the woodshed. But with the right setup and the right parameters, it could be good for a counter trend trade, and that's what the miners were today for some guys who haven't been caught in that short. I think Tim Cook's going to be on Mad Money tonight. I did not want to be in it, but I'm long a little Apple. Basically it held this spot. I'm thinking maybe you get a small little bounce above this. I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster move, but I don't know. I've seen crazier things, but at this point, we have our out, and we'll see whether or not something comes out of there that excites anybody. But probably too obvious to say that Kramer's going to give him some lobs, and the street will actually care, and it can go up a little bit. So we'll see. But anyway, maybe there's a little spot for this to retrace. If it can't get above this and continues to go sideways next time it gets below this 92.50, you better look out for a lot lower prices. Stock's very broken. What else? Oil pulled in a little bit today, but it's been pretty overbought. It's now coming into, I would say, look here for potential rebuy. If you sold it into the strength on Friday, this would be a spot, and then this would be a bit of a bigger spot. People are like, oh my God, the market was up and oil was down, because look how far it's come. It's not going to move tick for tick with oil, at $45 a barrel. When it was below 40 or 30 or even in the 25s, yes, up here, maybe it starts breaking closer to 42 to 40, and the street will start paying attention again. Money rotated away and kind of went into banks and whatnot. The IBBs did have a little red dog reversal after being very broken into, this was old resistance that I guess came into some decent support. So here are some guys along the IBBs at that 265 pivot, and then maybe you'll see a trade back to this 276 before the sellers have to step up. If you got out when it broke this 283-ish, which we mentioned many times, you had the luxury of buying it back, $10, $13 cheaper, and now you'll see whether or not it gets a little bit of a bounce there. So, having your pivots and trading the end of the ranges and following the money and just doing high probability trades could, keep your P&L on the smiley side. And it's a new month. You had new funds come in. We'll see if they, burnt themselves out a little bit, and as we head into this resistance where the sellers might come back, and tomorrow, the next day, will be interesting to see whether or not we bust through that ascending channel retest, or push through, fail, and head lower, or stall right in front. But either way, there's lots of things to do along the way, so make sure you're reading the note, you're listening to all the content providers, and you're very active on the VTF, where there's a lot of good ideas being passed around. Have a good night.